What's up with it? This your boy the Dark Man. Yeah, it's been a while since I recorded a narration. I just been busy. I finally finished this new story called The Clones. Took me about a couple months. I've been here and there with it. I've been slacking off, I know, but your boy back and I'm ready for this scary shit. And we about to get shit rolling, baby. Now, today's story is about a man in the future who creates clones, basically. And they just rebel against them and shit. Whole bunch of crazy shit. You already know how that go, man. Now, I can't tell you too much, or the story will be ruined. And I cannot have that happen. But now that it's nighttime, where your fear is the highest, just sit back, relax, eat your popcorn, and drink your Coke, or whatever the hell you're snacking on, and enjoy the story. My family and I may be living our last few hours in this bedroom. We all know our time together will come to an end soon. Mankind has dominated the earth for many years. Our reign has finally come to an end, and it's all of our faults. The day that project first started, I knew that it was the beginning of the end. I was just heading out of my office, about to go home, when my coworker Chris decided to stop me. Thinking back on it, I probably should have just said no. Hey Ralph, want to come over for dinner tonight? My wife is cooking up the best pot roast you'll ever have in your life, he had said. I complied and was over there that very night. At dinner, both of our families joked and had a grand time. When his wife was putting away the dishes, Chris had asked me to step into his office with him. Now to talk about why I really wanted you to come, he had said. Chris then began on his idea that has been boggling his mind for years. It was a pretty long story, but to sum it up, he basically wanted to create clones of all humans on Earth. To do this, we need to extract a DNA sample from everyone who wants a clone and put them into a time chamber that allows the cells to multiply at a fast rate, creating an exact replica of the person within 1 week. The reason he wanted to do this is because he was tired of not being able to see his family as often. So he decided to have his clone go to work for him while he relaxed at home. The part that really got me was when he mentioned they can also regenerate body parts within a matter of hours. After our discussion, he told me that he'd speak to a head of the company. I haven't told you this yet, but I was employed at the most illustrious labs that creates vaccines, medicines, and other drug-related substances in the world. In short words, I am a pharmaceutical scientist. The day I headed to work, once I got there, Chris was already in my office along with John Bailey, the head of our company. Close the door, Ralph, and have a seat, John had said to me. Once I sat, we began our discussion on the project. Chris and I talked about the previous night. During the meeting, we discussed the budget, when and where the project would take place. The conversation lasted about a whole 8-hour shift. In the next few months, we got our funds directly from the government who approved us. The project started within 5 months. 4 of our head pharmaceutical scientists, along with Chris and I, conducted it at the northern campus. During the entirety of the project, we made many errors, causing long nights at the office. Every day was filled with constant failures, making us a bit discouraged. Chris had to motivate us every shift to remind us that what is in store for the future will be well worth our efforts. Once a week, we would put a fragment of someone's DNA into the system. Each experiment turned out to be a failure. There was nothing in the tubes except the blobs of mess attempting to form what was supposed to be a human. AI, that is. Every single experiment we created looked like beasts, animals that weren't even close to humans. We destroyed them by incinerating them right on the spot. They would scream in absolute agony as we took away what was given to them in only mere seconds after their birth. Life. Some were violent and lashed out at us, causing many to flee the lab. As I shook my head in frustration, I plucked out a strand of my hair, for which had to have been the 100th time. When I placed it into the system, I did a silent prayer, hoping this would be a successful test. As the week progressed, everyone looked at the figure in the tube, which finally began to appear human. We all prayed and hoped it would remain the same way until its completion. I just couldn't take another failure or I'd go insane. When a week finally strolled by, we opened the being's chamber. The beeping of the machine caused me to shake in fear of what would happen. The creature fell onto the floor, opening its eyes and gasping for air. It looked around in confusion as to why strange creatures were staring at it and why the security had their guns pointed to it. That's what I interpreted from the looks of fear coming from my clone's eyes. I walked closer to my clone and tried communicating. "How are you feeling?" I'd asked. He tried to speak words, which first came out slurred, but within a few seconds became clear. "I'm fine, but who are you?" he'd asked me. I told him my name and he looked up with confusion. "But that's my name." "It is, and it's also my name as well. You're my clone, and I'm the real me. Is that understood?" He looked at me and shook his head with compliance. "Well, ladies and gentlemen, looks like the project was a success." Everyone screamed in joy. We finally completed a project that took 5 years of hard work, and man, were we happy. That following night, we decided to have a celebration. Everyone working at the other 3 campuses were invited and could bring along one guest. When I got home, I showered and got dressed within 10 minutes or less. The excitement I felt was so immense that I couldn't handle to wait for the party. I gave my wife, Diane, a kiss and headed back out around 7. To my surprise, when I got there, we already had caterers and other food outlets getting set up in the recreation center. The whole building was filled to the brim with some people I'd never even seen before. Chris came up running to me with his mouth already stuffed with cheeses and prosciutto from the charcuterie board. "Ralph, man, this stuff is amazing. I never knew ham could be this damn good." The rest of the evening, Chris and I got drunk, laughed, and had a good time. John Bailey, the head of our company, finally came out on the mic and congratulated everyone that had worked on the project. "We will now bring out the first clone ever created by man," John had shouted. My clone came out from behind the curtains, looking at everyone with confusion. "Well, go on, man. The crowd had been waiting for years for you. Say something," John had said. My clone finally began to speak. "Good evening, everyone. As you all may know, I am the clone of Ralph Johnson. This is my first day ever existing, and I must say, so far it is quite pleasant." Everyone then began chuckling. After the party, my clone and I headed to my home, or maybe I should say our home. He is me after all. As soon as I walked in the door, my wife looked at both of us in shock. Her first words were, "So which one is mine?" Technically, we both are, but if you want to figure out which one is the real Ralph, just look at the back of our necks. If you see a small bright light on the back, then that one is the clone. The kids walked in and looked at their second father. Once everyone saw the blue light glowing on the back of his neck, they looked at it in awe. As the night ended, Diane and I headed to our room while the other Ralph got acquainted with the kids. The rest of the weekend was filled with nothing but enjoyment as we all got used to our new guest. He would be going off to work for me while I stayed at home and spent more time with my family. There was no need to discuss what all needed to be done at my job because he received all of my memories as well. Not even a full month after the project took off, clones were finally being advertised on the news, social media, and were the big talk around the world. People from different countries came to our city just to have a clone made for themselves. Within a 2-year period, the revenue brought in millions of dollars. After the 5-year mark, it turned into billions. Chris and I were on top of the world at that point. Our bank accounts were never empty and our lives were never difficult. That is until the night I caught what no man should ever witness with his own eyes. I came home from a night of drinking with Chris. When I walked in, I heard creaking coming from Diane and I's bedroom. I immediately ran upstairs to see that piece of worthless AI sleeping with my wife. I stormed in and slammed his body on the floor, beating him into a bloody mess. He begged for mercy, but I didn't stop. I was so furious, I ignored his cries. Diane tried to stop me, but I pushed her to the side. I lifted him up in the air by the collar and saw a piece of thick cloth hanging from the back of his neck, covering the blue light. I yelled at him to leave the room at once, which he did. Diane came over to me crying, saying she thought it was me the whole time. I could tell she was drinking. I then apologized to her for being so angry. I had no idea he fooled her into thinking he was me. The artificial piece of shit is going to pay, I had told Diane, and I meant it. I ran around the house in a drunken rage. I found him in the living room, cowering in fear. I picked him up and slammed him hard onto the floor, proceeding to bash his face in with my fists. Blood squirted everywhere, staining the carpet, couch, walls, and my face. The kids ran in the room and pulled me off him, crying. Once I saw their tears, I realized I had made a horrible mistake and instantly regretted it. I picked my clone up and laid him on the couch. I then immediately began patching him up. His wounds kept oozing blood, and I kept crying, apologizing for hurting him like that. He just looked at me with no emotion. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of bacon and eggs. The AI was in the kitchen cooking breakfast for everyone. When I saw his face, it didn't come to my surprise that it already started healing. Their healing factor is off the charts after all. I apologized for the other night and tried to hug him. "No problem, Ralph. After all, she was yours first," he had said. There was an awkward silence for what felt like 5 minutes, until the kids and wife came rushing in, bringing in a joyous atmosphere with them. The rest of the day was normal besides the fact that my AI ghosted me. I can't blame him though. The guy has been on Earth for years and has yet to receive any intimacy. I kinda felt bad, so I took him out the next weekend to meet other AIs. He had a few chats, but failed to get any woman's actual attention. The drive home was silent and awkward. Weeks passed after that awkward night in the car, and I could tell the relationship between my AI and myself were deteriorating. We barely talked like we used to when he first came to home. The best friend relationship we had before is gone, and it's my own fault. I woke up one morning to a news headline on people abusing their clones and taking advantage of the fact that they can regenerate quickly. The videos were so gruesome. There was one video of an AI getting beaten with a baseball bat repeatedly, screaming for mercy at his person to stop. I was heartbroken that Chris and I project has made a horrible turn. The fact that people just abuse the benefits of having an AI angered me so much, I bursted into tears. They were created to make our lives easier. They are our families, companions for life. They don't deserve this. Yes, I lashed out at my AI, but I apologized and was very kind to him, trying to make up for the horrible mistake I made. These people were different though. They would abuse their AI every single day. To make matters worse, the people weren't even getting arrested for their horrible actions because, as stated by the police, they're technically beating themselves. So where's the actual crime? When the cop said that with a chuckle, I grew sick to my stomach at how evil some humans could be. I just shut off the TV before it caused me more frustration and went to bed. That night I had a nightmare. Every single clone in the world had begun rebelling against all humans, taking control over them. There were constant wars, blood and body parts everywhere. I then saw my clone about to break into my house, and that's when I woke up with beads of sweat dripping down my forehead. It was 7 a.m., so I decided to make everyone breakfast. As soon as everyone came down, I gave my wife a kiss good morning. All of a sudden, Ralph got up from his seat and left the front door. Before doing so, he patted me on the back and whispered, "Now it's my turn." A sudden chill had ran down my spine as he closed the front door. I kept staring at the door, wondering what he could have meant. Perhaps he was talking about making breakfast the next day. I had no idea, but for my sake, I hoped and prayed that it was something positive. A few days had passed and my AI was nowhere to be found. We looked throughout the whole town with no hopes of finding him. Every night I would have that same dream of humanity's downfall. I kept telling Diane every morning, but she would ignore my cries, telling me I should go to the doctor or get more sleep. Days soon turned into weeks. Within only 3 weeks, people all over the world had their clones go missing. I called Chris on the phone and told him about my dreams. He didn't believe me either and thought the clones were just hiding somewhere because they're scared of us. "We are the dominant species, you know," Chris had said with a sickening chuckle. I just hung up, sick to my stomach as to why he thought all of this was funny. Within a few months, every single AI in the world had vanished. Work was crazy with constant people coming to us complaining and demanding refunds, which we of course couldn't give back. A few workers got injured by a mob held in front of Campus D. Those people were then tear gassed by the army that guarded us. A year had finally gone by with the AIs gone missing. Those dreams eventually stopped, and it's almost as if everything has gone back to normal. Until what happened last week. It was a hot summer day. I was taking my family to the park for an outing. That's when the whole ground had started shaking. Everyone ran around the park in fear and panic. I held my family close and ran for the car. That's when a large drill-like machine came drilling up from the ground. There were gunshots everywhere. Within a mere 5 minutes, the whole park had dead people laying on the ground in their own pools of blood. I drove away to our home. As soon as we got home, we locked up every single door and window. We all held each other in fear inside the master bedroom. For several days, we heard gunshots and screams, echoing throughout the night. We just fell asleep every single day from exhaustion. When I woke up this morning, at 8 a.m., I cut on the TV and saw a news anchorman standing in front of a completely wrecked city. The amount of dead bodies made me gag, so I cut the TV off. Everyone looked at each other with the looks of terror. I told them nothing would happen to them if they stayed with me. There was the slightest looks of hope until we heard a bang at the front door. I looked up at the camera monitor we had installed in our room. There was Ralph standing at the door. He kept banging until he gave up and just broke the living room window. When we heard glass break downstairs, my kids screamed and cried. Ralph immediately looked up at the ceiling and smiled a sickening grin. Ralph then ran up the stairs and stopped right in front of our door. As soon as I heard those 2 footsteps creak, I knew it was him and that our life would be over quickly. It has been hours since he stopped in front of the bedroom door. I don't want to check because I haven't heard a single footstep move within hours. So that must mean he's still there, right? Maybe I'm getting paranoid. Please, whoever gets this message, leave the house now. It isn't safe here. The door is now creaking open. I knew I shouldn't have went to that idiot's house for dinner. Now I only have myself to blame for causing this trouble to humanity. Please forgive me for doing this to you all. I only wanted to help mankind evolve. Now look what happened. Humanity is at its end. All because of those damn clones.